And now, without further ado, coming to our speaker for the day, Mrs. Bala Saraswati Nair. She is an ex-principal and online remedial coach. She has more than 25 years of experience in education. She is the principal and regional head of an international school catering to over 12,000 children under various boards: IGE, CSC, CBSC, SSC, and ICSC. Her passion to connect and touch every child's life has led her to set up Prayas Charitable Foundation and Veda's Education to cater to children with academic challenges. She had run an inclusive school for 12 years that caters to children with special needs. She has recently started an online coaching platform enabling parents, teachers, and schools to make a bigger difference in more children's life. She has MPhil in Education, Learning Disability, and a Master's in Economics and Master's in Education. Wow, she is super qualified to be conducting this session, and she comes with a wide range of experience and expertise in this field. We are so very elated and excited to have you here with us today, Ma'am Bala Saraswati. So without further ado, I would request you to take over.
May I?
Yes, sure.
All right. Swati, thank you so much for that introduction. Thank you to Ability. Thank you to the entire team who's making such an amazing effort to connect with people across the world and touch this topic of education, special education, and now inclusive education. So this is going to make a difference in the lives of lots of people, because ultimately we all are belonging to an inclusive community, inclusive world, right? Earth is only one. So why not the schools? So thank you so much, Swati. With your permission, can I start the slide share?
Definitely.
All right. So before I start my slide, I would like to welcome all the amazing participants from Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Trinidad and Tobago. Amazing, those beautiful islands: Australia, Caribbean, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Bhutan, Myanmar, Singapore, Nepal, and of course, my loving citizens of India. Thank you so much for registering for this workshop. And I'm sure I hope that I'll be able to do justice to your expectations in the next 2 hours. But before I start the slides, I would like to tell you this topic is really huge, very vast. And 1 hour is really less. So I would try to touch the areas and move. And thank you, Sangeeta, Shafuk Gupta, Rukkaiya from Pakistan, Farzana from Bhavnagar, Nika Sia from Philippines. Thank you so much. Good evening to all of you. And here I go with the slide. Is it visible on the screen? Do I need to make it full screen?
Yeah, okay. You can try making it full screen.
Yeah. Is it good? Are we good to? All right. So what is an inclusive school? Is such a need to have in every city, every part of the world, that we must have an inclusive school, because ultimately we are all inclusive human beings. Our one body has so many departments, and only when all these departments work in sync, brain, heart, kidney, or lungs, is where we make it a wholesome, complete body. So it is as much important to have an inclusive school. But before I start talking in detail about inclusive school, I would like to just read out the names of some people who belong to Indian mythology. I'm sorry for the people of the other countries. You may or may not know, but these stories are very popular in the Southeast Asian countries, and they are watched very widely, and that is Ramayana and Mahabharata. So I'd like to read out the names: Ashwatavakra, Dhritarashtra, Shakuni, Kalidasa, Manthara, Shukracharya, Vamana, Trivakra, Surdas. What is common between all these people? And what is amazing about all these people? Is something that you can start your thoughts with. What is so unique about all these people? And these stories are very, very popular in, I know, in Indonesia and Malaysia, at least, and in Philippines. Now, to just keep this in mind, and we take this session forward. So before I start about inclusive education, let's do a little recap of what you all must have attended in the previous session about the importance of a teacher, the right mindset for a teacher, the do's and don'ts to be an effective teacher, specific skills for teacher development, and the power of the word teacher. So much power in that word. This word, I don't think I find this power in any other word. And you are the maker or the breaker of this community, you and me both. So let's move ahead as to what are you going to watch or what are you going to get in this session today. The basic framework comprises of decoding inclusion, components of inclusion, differentiating exclusion, separation, integration, and inclusion, moving towards mainstreaming, myths, facts on inclusion, infrastructure requirement that are the main domains, 4 main domains of an inclusive school: professionals, infrastructure, professionals, parents, and attitude, and the steps towards getting up and inclusive, setting up an inclusive school. So if you are ready, you can all type ready. My audio is low, is what I read. Can you, yeah, all right. Thank you so much. You're such an engaging, intelligent, amazing audience. So let's begin with decoding inclusion. What is this word inclusion all about? Now go back to those 9 names that I read and what was happening in their life, and were they a part of an inclusive community then? What did Manthara do? Or what did Dhritarashtra do? Or the other names that I read out? Let's go on parallel, okay? So what is decoding? A child must receive education in an environment that is restrictive and least restrictive and most conducive. And the first choice for any general education child with disabilities is placing his or her with peer without disability. So children, if they learn together, they grow and they make amazing impact in each other's life. And that is what is inclusive education. So inclusive education is an umbrella term. It's a huge umbrella term that encompasses considerations and strategies to support the diversity of the learners in a given context. It maximizes barriers to learning, as this may impact an individual's ability to achieve the full potential. We can derive to anybody's full potential if you look at that person holistically. If there is somebody with a visual impairment and we only focus on his visual disability, then we may not allow the other abilities of that person to grow. And this is possible to happen if they live in an inclusive society. So as per the new education policy in India, and I'm sure this must be applicable across the world, that children with all these categories should be studying in a mainstream school. So what are they? There are 5. Gender identities, that is male, female, and transgender, studying in the same environment. Children from socio-cultural identities, that is scheduled caste, tribes, backward class, minorities, OBC. Children from different geographical identities coming from village, town, and other distant areas, geographically detached from the mainland. And children from socio-economic conditions coming from migrant communities, low economic households, children from victims of children from trafficking, refugees, all should be studying in the same mainstream school, is a requirement as per the law. And the last one, and the most important one, children from 21 disabilities, as per the Right to Persons with Disability Act 2016, should be studying in the same school. So all these kids, many schools in India have already started adopting this, and the change is very, 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 very gradual, but it does happen. The other areas are still okay, but what about this? 21 disabilities: blindness, low vision, locomotor, intellectual, mental illness, specific learning disability, hearing impairment, muscular dystrophy. I just want to know, do all our teachers in India or anywhere across the world know about these disabilities? Do they even know that what happens to a child when they are impacted with these challenges, and how do you help a child if they walk into a regular classroom? That's one of the biggest challenges that we are going to face. So is it disability only a role or a responsibility of a few? Is that is inclusion, that a few people are taking care of this area? So to know more about it, let's find out. Ask yourself, which kind of school are you in? Because I could see many of you are teachers, you're from your parents, you're also from the training institutes. I was just reading your chat. You belong to different communities. Some of you are from colleges, and many of you are professors. So ask yourself, you belong to a teacher in a school, a normal, regular teacher in a school. What kind of school are you? Are you, by looking at this image, I don't think I need to explain this image a lot, but still I would do, is let's go from the right, that is integration. Children who are allowed, children of different kind. I don't want to use only disability, but all are integrated in the school, but are kept within the school separately. The second one is a separation. They have another area outside the school facility. Then is exclusion, not entertaining these kids in the school. And the one to the extreme left, that is inclusion. Inclusion is everyone, everywhere, everybody helping everybody else. And for this to happen, what do we need? If you could ask yourself which school you belong to, you will be able to answer. You will be able to understand what is the impact and what is our role as parents or professionals or even a community member when we talk about inclusion. So in a mainstream environment, we have a special education classroom and an inclusive classroom. That means in some schools, there would be a possibility that children walk into the main school, but they remain in a special education cell. In some schools, there would be a possibility that they go to a special education cell for a while, but rest of the time they are in the mainstream classroom or participating in all the mainstream activities. This is what is actually expected. So before I go further deeper into the domains of the inclusive education, let us understand what are the myths and facts on inclusion. There are lots of myths. There are a lot of beliefs that, oh, how can this be possible and why it should be possible? I don't think it is right. Okay, so let's me just share some myths. The first myth is segregation is better. Keep them away. They need extra attention. They cannot be mixed. My other children will get disturbed. This is one belief. But the actual fact is, inclusion is the best educational program since it allows individuals to develop as per their abilities. It also inculcates values like caring and sharing. Second myth, inclusion is an expensive option. Oh, how do we manage all these changes that we'll have to bring in? But let me tell you, it is an affordable way to provide the most equitable solution to all the learners. How does that happen? How do you help children of with disability and without disability to be benefited by each other? Third myth, inclusive education is just another fad. But the fact is, it's a concrete way of understanding individual differences and reaching out to them. Isn't it? If a child is blind, his all other senses are very, very alert. So let's take advantage of that and grow in those areas while addressing his needs of visual impairment. Inclusion is difficult in regular school. Of course not. That's the demand of the new education policy 2020. It is practiced in regular schools by modification of learning strategies and ways of delivering them. There needs to be made a lot of changes, but it is possible. Another myth, non-cooperative parents. Very common question that I get to be asked. Parents don't understand, but the fact is, when parents see visible change in their children, they are ready to render their full support and help. And for that, there has to be a lot of input from the school and the entire system. Another myth, individuals with disabilities are an unfortunate drain on the society. Oh my God, are they drain on the society? Can we convert this drain into strength? They contribute substantially to society by excelling in their areas. Now, I will once again, for this particular line, I like to go back to, do you know what Surdas was? Who Surdas was? Surdas was blind. But what is he known for? Is he known for his blindness, or is he known for his poetic skills? Let me take another name, Shukracharya, another guru who was blind. He's remembered as a blind person, but at the same time he's remembered more as a guru who was very, very, very learned, right? Let's go to the next one. Next myth, inclusive education is good only for students with disability. Is it true? Does it help only them? Or does it really help all the other children too? Is having a child with ADHD or visual impairment or hearing impairment in the classroom not going to benefit all the other children also? Can we look at it from that angle? Of course, it will. The empathy, the sympathy, the challenges the other person faces, you will start being grateful to God that, wow, I have everything, which means I can do much better than what I am doing today. So under this system, all children get an opportunity to live, learn, and play together, thereby enhancing their talents and personalities. So there are many laws for the inclusive education across the world. I have just been able to pick up a few. One of the most prominent one, in fact, all of them is Article 24 UN Convention on Rights to Peoples with Learning Disability, with disability, which emphasizes a lot on inclusion of children of all the challenges. Right to Education Act, RPWD Act 2016, Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, the very popular one in India, New Education Policy 2020. I was so delighted to read when the New Education Policy was released. And the last one, Inclusive Education for Children with Youth and Special Needs. These are also there in countries like Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, and in fact, all the countries. In some countries, it's implemented to a greater extent compared to the others. India is in a process of doing that, and I can see many institutions making that change. So how do you put this law into practice? The foremost thing that we need to remember as an institution is adopting a zero refusal policy. What's that? Not denying any child to take admission with the disabilities in your school, in my school. So when I say any disabilities, there is a small glitch here. So it is children who need less support, moderate support, and severe support. So those kids who need severe support are not coming under this category of inclusion. At least in the Indian laws, it's very clearly mentioned. So it's more for children who need less support and moderate support. So schools that announce a number of seats reserved for children with special needs and admit all the children who approach for admission. Is this happening? I know it is not happening. I know it, but it needs to be happening. And that's why organizations like Ability conduct such workshops where at least we all come to know about there are such systems, parents are made aware, and they can ask for provisions for their children. Once admitted, each child should be equally welcomed, accepted, valued, and respected without discrimination. It is very easy to say, then act. But let me tell you, it's not that difficult either. To understand why it is not difficult, to understand how we can make inclusive institutions the most beautiful places in this world. I've tried to divide this session into 4 domains. That is, and this is how an inclusive school should look like: children with and without disability and all the other challenges studying and living together. So, majorly, there are 3 kinds of schools. Schools which take only toppers, who focus on the performance, who focus on pushing the performance of children. So for them, I see that there is no space for such children. There are second kind of schools, which are exclusive schools, who take children, average and topper, but they go in, they keep them separately and address their needs in a different special education setup. And what India needs, what Philippines needs, what Malaysia needs, what Sri Lanka needs, what Bhutan, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Pakistan, everything, everybody needs is an inclusive school. A school where everybody is welcome, a school where we can accommodate children with and without disability from the same angle and support them. As I said, it's very easy to say. So to make it possible, I've tried to divide today's session into 4 domains. As I said, this topic is very, very vast. It's very difficult to address too many things, but I'm sure all of you will be with me in understanding that how we can address at least these 4 domains. The first one, infrastructure. Second, professionals. Third, parents and society. And fourth, attitude. Do you agree that if these 4 areas are addressed, the school can become an inclusive school? If yes, please type IPPA. Let's remember this acronym from now onwards. IPPA. I would like all of you, as many, I don't know how many people are attending this webinar. Here I can see more than 400. IPPA. If we remember these 4 things, thank you so much for your amazing participation. I really love the way you all are responding. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What's IPPA? Let's remember this. Change in infrastructure, approach of professionals, approach of parents, and most important, the third one, the attitude. If these 4 areas are addressed, I think we can make a difference in life of every child. Now, what's the first one? Infrastructure. Is it easy? Is it a teacher's job? Is it a special educator's job? No. It is, of course, a school administrator's job. They change, they make the school a disabled-friendly school where children with different challenges can comfortably walk in. Many schools of India have started this. I'm sure many schools in Singapore and Malaysia and Pakistan and other countries also have, but not many yet. So let's know if we can make some area in the school where children can have railings or specially designed washrooms, things can be much more comfortable for them. Like they do not have to climb steps. Some big international schools, of course, have lifts and other facilities. But when I look at schools at large, whether it's a government school, international school, there can be very, very simple modifications by which we can make this change in infrastructure. The second and the very, very important domain is professionals. When I say professionals, is it only the special educator or only the counselor who is responsible? Of course not. Every teacher of the school, every maid or helper, or every person who's traveling, every bus driver, bus conductor, the doctors who visit school, the physiotherapists, the occupational therapists, the clerks, the administrators, the coach guys, the football coaches, every person who's employed in the school has to participate in making the school a school inclusive school. It cannot be limited to only left to the mercy of a special educator. Do you agree with this? If you agree with this, please type agree. That every professional working in the school has to be aware, has to be made sensitized, has to agree that yes, children of different challenges can study in our school, and we as individuals who have been blessed with so-called normal life can support these children. I'm so happy that all of you are actively responding to this agree. Thank you so much. Organizing, and how do we do that? We do it by organizing regular orientations, sensitization programs on inclusive practices with all the stakeholders of the school. And not only of the school, of the areas around the school, like having in the neighborhood the shops and residents. Like where we had our campus, the neighbors were not very comfortable with the idea. So first thing I had to do is go and talk to all the people in the neighboring, whether it was malls or shops or where there were residents, that we are going to have children with different challenges studying together, and there might be some inconveniences caused, and I would request you to support for it. So I did get both the positive and the negative responses, but our effort is to always take the help of the positive people and convert the negative approach people into the positive approach people, which is not difficult. So what is an inclusive school? What should an inclusive school have? They must have special educators, many, not one. Why do I say many? And do we have enough? I say many because all the special educators, those who are attending this session also will agree that you all specialize in any one disability. Yes or no? If you specialize in one disability, please write one. But we are allowing children from 21 disabilities to be a part of the mainstream curriculum, mainstream education. So when you specialize in one disability, that is either visual impairment or hearing impairment or autism or specific learning disability or intellectual disability, you are going to, but you are expected, the teacher is expected to address children with all the disabilities. How does it even possible? How can you expect an expert of autism to address the need of a visual impairment? Because they are generally taught about it, we expect them to address those needs too. But I somewhere feel that our special educators are really overloaded, and they are few in number. Why they are few in number? Because our systems are not having so many seats and so many opportunities to become special educators. So what happens? The load or the responsibility will have to now being distributed with general educators also. So you need counselors, therapists, psychologists, social workers, volunteers, and of course, parent support. When we say parent support, is it only the support of parents who have children with disability, or is it also the support of others who do not have? All right. So now let's go to domain. Others, the second domain, let's continue with professionals. So what do we have to do? Building a culture for inclusion in the school by adopting what? Changes in curriculum, pedagogy, co-curricular activities which can accommodate all the children's needs, assessment to implement inclusion as a basic right of each child. That means we need to change in the methodology of assessment. As I've already repeated twice, that this topic is so vast. You will ask, can you tell us on assessment? Can you tell us on pedagogy? Let me be very honest, in the time allotted, what the depth of every topic cannot be addressed. And I'm sure in the upcoming workshops, these areas are going to be addressed. Providing the least restrictive environment for achieving maximum learning outcomes by following all infrastructural requirements. Why do we call it least restrictive environment? Where the children can move around with safety and with comfort. So what's a role of a teacher now? A role of a normal teacher. When I say normal, not somebody who's done special education, somebody who's just handling a general education class. And that role now becomes very, very widened, very more responsible and more adaptive. So what's that? Developing a positive attitude. The most important thing is accepting anybody and everybody in your classroom. Next, identification of children with special needs. So does the teacher have the training? I doubt. So what will the schools have to do is to give that kind of training. Involve all students in every activity. Is it possible? Of course it is possible, based on the ability that the child has. Every child can be made to participate in something or the other based on the ability he has. Next is collaboration with stakeholders. That is making every stakeholder responsible and involving everybody to make it an inclusive way of looking at things. Suitable adaptations in curriculum. The chapters can be broken down into what is called VAKT, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and tactile way of teaching. Preparing so many kinds of teaching aids by which all kinds of children can learn from the same method, and adaptations in evaluation. So the teacher's role is now further widening. One sec. Okay. And now come to the teaching methodology. What kind of teaching methodologies will be required? Reflective teaching, you introspect, take responses from everybody, think, overthink on these teaching, on the what is being taught. Differentiated instructions, model your teaching that all the segments, all the children in the classroom can be addressed in one-to-one, in pairs, or in groups. Experiential project-based teaching, community approach, involving people from different communities as a normal part of teaching curriculum, and collaborative. Make our teaching method integrating or team teaching or teaching with other teachers together, making the children also as teachers. And the other one is UDL, the Universal Design for Teaching. Amazing. I personally feel that sports play a very, very, very important role in inclusion. How does it happen? Because children in the sports field are very natural and normal. They learn so much from each other. And whether it is a child with or without disability, this is what they all get from the sports field. Better fitness. It can be for child on a wheelchair. You'll ask what he'll play. He'll play with his hand if his hand is strong. He will play with his head if his head is strong. So we as teachers have to identify what is the strength of this child, by which we can make our children play and participate in one or the other game. Improve cognitive health, weight control, healthier bone density. These are the benefits. Better emotional health, very important in a field. Better social skills, better motor skills, self-esteem, and reduce risk of disease. And of course, most important is team. Team spirit is what is developed. So whether it is children with or without disability, they can actually help each other based on their strength. Now let's talk about the accommodations that can be provided in the classroom environment. What are the doables that we can do? So let's know. Provide the least restrictive environment in the classroom. Eliminate unnecessary obstacles from the classroom, where the child can move freely without falling, without any blockages on his way. Allow the student to travel with a peer, buddy, and shadow teacher. I remember this so well when one of the visually impaired child were admitted in my school, and let me tell you, I was not prepared for it at all. So I was not confident whether we should take the admission. So what I did was I went and approached all the students and teachers, said, we have a child coming like this, and I am not mentally ready for it. And you'll be surprised to know the answer I got. So they said, let's talk about what are the challenges we would have if a child with extreme low vision joins our classroom. So we made a list of challenges. We had an open discussion with children. Let me tell you, dear friends, I had an amazing experience when they gave me the ideas. They gave me the challenge and they gave me the solution. They did both. The children responded so beautifully that we can do this. I will go do my lunch with him. When the period is over, I will volunteer to take him to the washroom. And they went on with volunteering and taking up responsibility, that everything sounded so normal. So I felt as an adult, probably I have a blockage, but children are so open to accepting everything. Do you agree with this? The children are very, very open to agreeing with this. That they are ready to adapt and learn. I can see a lot of you are writing in the comments, but I'm sorry, with my session, I cannot read all the comments, but I'll really appreciate in the end for Swati or somebody to let me know what are your questions and comments. Familiarize students with the route map, the library, the medical room, washroom, playgrounds, Everywhere the route map can, and visual cues from which the children can know which direction they have to go, just the way our airports and other places are designed. Accommodations and teaching process, the doables are proceed from simple to complex, use step-by-step approach, teach through concrete illustrations, keep preferred learning style to the student. Concrete illustrations, the more it is visual, the more learning, the better is the learning. Frequent checks for understanding, like asking questions, involving in a group, individual activities, role play, narrating a story, and theater. Theater plays a very, very amazing role. That is teaching through acting, teaching through theater activities. Praise the student for every successful attempt. This is a very common need for every child who has some or the other challenges. Let's find out every very small opportunity to appreciate that. So I'm just giving one example of how we can do adaptation for students with ADHD. Like if they have a motor activity challenge, then provide opportunities for them to sit and take breaks while sitting, because as we know, children with ADHD cannot sit long. So they should be allowed to get up and move around. Allow student to stand while working. It should be okay as long as he's working. And assign responsibilities in such a way that their hyperactiveness can be addressed. Inattention. Students should sit with a buddy selected by a teacher so that the buddy can help the child. Allow extra time to complete assigned work. Give clear and concise instructions. One assignment at a time to avoid workload as per the ability of the child. That is why we are trained to make IEPs. Break content worksheet into smaller parts. Now, how do we do organizing planning? Collaborate with parents, encourage neatness, record assignments, and send weekly progress reports home. So we know the process and development of the child. Now that was about the professionals. Now let's talk about the roles and responsibilities of the parents and students. Which parents and which students? Is it parents of children with disability or the parents of children without disability? What do you think? Whose role is more important? You know what I feel? I feel the role of parents of children without disability play a major role in making the schools inclusive. And also children without disabilities, they play a very mega role in making the schools inclusive. And how do we do that? Creative and inclusive approach to establish a positive school culture. Thank you. Creating a positive school culture. It is done through continuous effort. It's not like we do one workshop in the beginning of the year and things change. It doesn't. Consistent, continuous trainings, talks, sensitization activities, theater programs have to be practiced by the schools. Only then this change can happen. It's just like our Safai Abhiyan. For example, in India, Safai Abhiyan has been happening over the years and has been happening in different modalities. That's where we are able to make a small change. So it is continuous effort by teachers, administrators, office staff, parents, and all students. Parents, by inculcating empathy, respect, generosity, and amongst the students by treating them the way they want and need to be treated. It's so common that the children with disability are laughed at, made fun of, stared. But if children without disability can be taught, empathized, those values generated right from the early age, as early as preschool, I think it's going to become very normal for them to accept others who have different needs. Orienting all stakeholders for successful implementation of inclusive program, like organizing capacity building workshops as frequently as possible, seminars for sensitizing all teachers and students and parents. Like before every PTM, there can be a small 5-minute talk only on why we want our school to be an inclusive school and how every parent or all the members of the child's family can contribute to making a school an inclusive school. The most important role is played by a buddy. and I love this whole idea, and I've seen it in many situations, that children adapt to helping another child much faster than any one of us. And there are many videos available with examples on how a child, when they had a running race, a child, when the children were running together and they were all Down syndrome children. When one child fell down, all of them stopped, waited for him to get up, held his hand, and ended the race together. I think we have a lot to learn from them than actually teach them. So when we make our buddy, when we have this children buddy, the whole environment, imagine a class of 30 children and there are only 2 children with some kind of disability. Can't the 30 children or 28 children help these two? Do we think it is so difficult? I don't. It's only a matter of inspiring and exciting children with the ideas that these children who have some deformities or some challenges also have a lot of strengths. Like this child who was visually impaired, I remember, he was so good at listening and learning, so good that once a story is read out, he knows it forever. Once an answer is given, he knows it forever. Whereas the other child who was so-called normal, that we say, he would say, ma'am, I forgot. Can you repeat it again? And this child who was visually impaired would, Arey, ma'am has already said it 2 times. How come you don't remember? Sometimes you feel, oh my God, where is the gap? So these children actually add value to making others realize that all of us can do it and all of us can do it together. So the buddy system is amazing if all of us can adopt this. Oriented, they keep themselves and the child oriented and motivated. Children learn patience and positivity. Children don't become fussy and demanding when they are brought up with such children with such needs. Conflict resolutions and negotiation skills are naturally taught. You don't need to conduct workshops for that. Children naturally pick it up and say, don't tell anything to my friend. I know he's my friend and I will do anything for him. This is the kind of behavior I have seen in children. They learn to respect everyone. Actually, when they grow up also, they learn to respect everyone. Children are very, if they are experiencing this, they have become very empathetic. Their eyes and ears are always open and alert, even when they are traveling in a train or a public transport or they're standing in a public place. They will naturally volunteer to help, support, or at least guide somebody. They become very responsible citizens. And we are all running after IQ, 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 IQ. And I think what the world needs now is more of EQ and SQ. That is emotional intelligence and spiritual, and to raise the spiritual quotient, emotional quotient and spiritual quotient. So let me ask you, as human beings, as you know, all the teachers and parents were attending this session, all the professional attending session, don't you think all our children need opportunities to raise their EQ and SQ? And EQ and SQ does not need a moral science class or a lecture or a workshop. It can be naturally adopted when children are provided with such amazing environment. Let me go to the domain 3. Parents, continue with domain 3, that is parents and students, fostering full participation in all school activities by identifying and removing barriers. Allowing the regular school parents, regular children's parents to walk into the school and participate. You know, when a parent complained to me, what I would say is, why don't you come and spend a day with us? Why don't you sit in that class where the child is there who has some challenges? Probably you will be able to tell me what's right and what's wrong going on in my classroom. And can I share this experience? I have seen parents transform after that. Once they sit and watch what a teacher goes through in a mixed class like this or an inclusive class like this, how other children behave and respond, the parents go back with gratitude and gratefulness for such an opportunity given to them. So instead of creating barriers, I always feel we should make it more open and accepting. So what is the role of parents now in an inclusive setup? Parents have to be partners, parents with disability and without disability. Only then, if they play an active role, They can empathize and sympathize and understand each other's condition. Parents must maintain constant communication with teachers in order to gain the insight. I always believe parents of disability, with children with disability and without disability, both have to keep that connect. um, children of Children should be allowed to live in each other's homes. That means they have these night outs. So when you have mixed groups, we used to do this a lot. We used to break the class into groups of twos and ask the parents to exchange children and have a one day night out in homes. And the parents explore so much about their own child when they see the other child's challenges and experiences. In fact, parents who have complained a lot about their children who are, although they are very smart and everything, still they have a long list of complaints. When they see the other child with so many challenges and still managing to cope up with their challenges, these parents have become very compassionate and understanding towards their own child and supporting this whole idea. So they should display trust in the institution and work together to bring out the best in their child, which means its inclusion is not limited to the administrator's responsibility, head of the school or management. It is from the maid, the masi or the helper, right up to the management. Everybody plays a collective role in helping every child of the school's need. Parents can provide critical information about their child without hiding. I think parents, I know it's not easy, it's easy than said. Parents must share about what are the different challenges the children go through, so that the other children also understand and become help and support to them, like child strength and weakness, background information, and information on family factors that may affect the child's learning. We had a system of sending that all the teachers of my school would visit the children, with visit homes of all the children every month and spend 1 hour with the family members to understand how is their life, how is this child's lifestyle back home. Because many a times in the institution you work so much with the child, but when the child goes back home, the child doesn't get an environment. So there is no practice of whatever's taught, or there's no response back from the other members in the family. So in one situation I remember that the parent was very accommodative, but they had father's brother and his wife were unfortunately very rude and unruly to this child. And that went on from the time the child was 3 till the time the child was 13. So imagine for 10 years you are consistently uh, called with bad names, humiliated, insulted, made fun of. So what kind of self-esteem will this child have? So when we visited homes, we started realizing that the home also needs so much of change. Though they have children, but there are no changes happening there. And in many countries, including India, we feel that it is, in Hindi we say shrap. So you are not a blessed person. That is why you have a child like this in your family. And such kind of vocabulary is very common in many homes, and that hampers the growth not only of the child but impacts the effort of the parent also. uh, Parents feedback makes a lot of difference in improving the instructional strategies. Frequent review, so that new IEPs need to be made. So bringing the parents of all the children together can really make a inclusive school a very protective and a apprehensive, a very emotional environment in the school. Especially parents of neurotypical child, also who have predispositions and prejudices about such kind of children. When they meet at the same platform, they realize that an inclusive setup can improve social and emotional learning and lead to a better adjustment in the society with and without disabilities. So let me now share with you what are the advantages of training whom, training the stakeholders, training the teachers, training the parents, and training the children. It increases awareness and attitudinal change, and which has to be a continuous process. Community members can be made aware of issues related to inclusive education, creating a very competent professionals through training to ensure requisite knowledge and skills to work on inclusive environment. And most important, good partnership between special educators and general teachers. I apologize for what I'm going to say next, but this is a fact that the general educators feel that this is the role of a special educator. This is your problem, you handle. The special educator complains saying that there are things which can be done for the child in a general education classroom. So the child must get those opportunities in a general education classroom. And this difference of opinion of these two educators have actually restricted the growth of the child. So they need to work hand in hand and support each other. And that's only going to be possible when general educators are given enough opportunities for trainings and understanding these issues. Because till the time the general educator thinks that my job is to only finish the syllabus, you're not going to do justice to the child. I always ask, did you become a teacher to complete the portion or to teach the child? If you know the difference between these two, I think your purpose of being a teacher will change. Summary. Summary of what? Summary of all the exemptions that are provided to these children. Now, I have just picked up a few, the details of all the exemptions which are given to visual impairment, hearing impairment, learning disability, ADHD are available in the websites of every board in India, and I'm sure it's available in other countries too. So I would request all the parents who are attending this, and especially the teachers, general educator teachers, that you must visit the websites and see what are these available. For example, like for intellectual disability, under which one category is specific learning disability and autism spectrum. So they have flexibility of choosing a subject in the main examinations, relaxation of attendance, exemption of studying a second language, reader or adult prompter or scribe, examination room on the ground floor, an option for skill-based subjects if they cannot handle with languages. Similarly, for physical disability, they have leprosy, cerebral palsy. So there are exemptions for all of them given here. Then similarly for visual impairment, like flexibility again in choosing a subject, relaxation in attendance, examination through computers, scribe and compensatory time, examination room to be on the ground floor, and magnifying glass if required. All once the child is assessed with that disability by the concerned authorities in every country, the exemptions are provided. Hearing impairment, similarly, compensatory time, maybe studying, exemption from studying a second language, reader to be provided, again for mental behavior, flexibility in choosing times, etc., etc. So these, I think, details about exemptions would be coming up in the upcoming workshops, and I would request all of you to kindly attend those. Now let me come to the most favorite part of the domain, which is the most important area where we all need to work on, is the attitude. If we all have an attitude of acceptance, everything will change, and the whole world as it is an inclusive world. When I go back to the story of Lord Vishnu, Lord Vishnu also took up again in Hindu mythology, took up the role of a dwarf in the story of Vamana. He became a dwarf, a small human being converted into the god, recreated himself as a small human being, as a dwarf. And being in that, he still made a huge impact in that particular story, where he acquired the earth, the Swarg and the Nark, the heaven and the earth, just by 1 foot. Why am I saying this? Is one change in her attitude can entirely change the whole approach of the concept of inclusion. And for that, as I've been saying, the change needs to be there, not only in special educators or counselors, it needs to be there in every person associated with schooling. Even, as I said, even a bus driver and a conductor, or anybody, any stakeholder of the school. So the promoting attitudinal changes, we conduct again frequent conducting of workshops for teachers, peers, and parents, understanding about the CWSN challenges, and raise awareness in teachers and staff about needs with specific children with special needs, orient teachers with strategies required to deal with them, ensure total well-being in terms of social, educational, and behavioral changes, act as bridge in providing effective communication lines between CWSN, make recommendations for IEP, individual educational plan to be designed for each child, and work with families and peers to build positive relationships. I'm revising what I've been saying about attitudinal changes, because if that is changed and concessions and facilities are provided, then the entire setup of inclusion can be I think one of the most beautiful places on the earth will be inclusive schools. So major work on the behavior of children with and without disability. So the special educator and counselor should possess what? Requisite professional qualification laid down by the board, detailed knowledge about each and every disability, each and every year, knowledge of remedial and counseling work to meet the demands of students, teachers, and parents. So to distribute the work, only if our general educator teachers are educated in this can we make the systems better. Now, I would like all of you to test whether your school is, those of you who mentioned in the chat that your school is an inclusive school, I have a small test. It's I'll quickly read out on the various. You just have to put a yes and no in your, either in the chat box or in your own notebooks, whatever you're carrying. So the first one says school policies and administrative support. Does your child have inclusive practice? Does your school have inclusive practice in the vision and mission statement? Very, very important. Does your school have barriers that prevent the school from being inclusive? Does your school have administrators, educators who understand the importance of inclusive education? Does your school have any individuals with special needs working as a staff member or staff or teacher inclusive? School environment. Does your school have welcoming, healthy, clean environment? Does your school have clean, safe drinking water? Does your school have separate toilets for boys and girls and with children with and without disabilities? Does your school have facilities accessible for students with disability? Does your school have staff from different backgrounds, men, women, different cultures and languages? That's what makes it inclusive. Do you have teachers who can explain the meaning of inclusive and learning friendly environment? Do you have teachers who believe all children can learn, including children with disability, ethnic minority and group? Do you have, so there are so many like this, and I'm not going to read out all. It was just to start. This list, I think, is being given as it will be provided to you as what I'm told. So it will help you to have a checklist of what's happening in your school and how if not, if it is, there are many no's, what you can do as an individual, as a special educator, as a counselor, as a head of the school, as an administrator, to make it into yes. So there are quite a few, 26 of them under different headers like students, academic content assessment, etc. Right? Now, let's look at this for 10 seconds. I will remain silent for 10 seconds. So what is being tried to explain here? The challenges and the level of intervention. As I said in the beginning, children with less support and moderate support are the children who would be entertained in an inclusive school. But children with severe support will continue to remain with the extra support environment or institutions, right? So am I not audible? Is my voice not clear? So who all are involved in this and what is the level of intervention? When it comes to mental well-being, of the entire school. So the entire school community is involved, and it should be an integrated school curriculum. It should be integrated in the school curriculum. In a normal classroom, this has to be openly accepted and explained. Mental health knowledge, attitude, behaviors, all students and teachers uh, will have to be provided with intervention. That means it should be a part of a general health curriculum. And psychosocial problems, where the problems are going further narrower, there who's involved? The counselors, teachers, and peer mentors, and students needing additional help, and children with severe problem disorder. There, it's the role of the counselors, school doctors, and other experts and professional management, which means in the first two layers, all the general educators and all the students, and I think all the parents can very openly participate, take responsibility, and help the school to continue to remain as an inclusive school. So now, addressing the challenges towards inclusion. It has been observed that practical difficulties are faced by schools have more to do with attitudinal change. If this change can be brought, I think everything else is very easy. Do you agree with this? If you agree, please type. So policymakers, teachers, parents, and communities should possess a positive attitude towards inclusive practice. It's not the role of just the government to have an inclusive school setup. It is a role of every individual. The community should be sensitized to understand that inclusive education is the best plan for all types of learners and for the development of an inclusive, peaceful, and fair society. So what are the benefits of an inclusive school environment? Wow. Foster friendship, increase social interactions, relationships, and networks, developing academic, social, behavior skills through peer and role modeling, increased achievement with the help of an IEP and ICP goals, greater access to general curriculum, and enhanced skill acquisition. Why? How come enhanced skill acquisition? Because when everybody is involved, then everyone's growth is obvious. All right. So what are the other benefits? Increased inclusion in future environments. Children will be ready for having them in the college. The acceptance would be high in a professional environment and later on in the families too. So if it is practiced at a very early age, it becomes natural for all of us. Greater opportunities for interactions, increased school staff collaboration, increased parental participation, integrating families into communities, and increased appreciation and acceptance of individuals' differences. Some more benefits: increased understanding and acceptance of diversity, respect for all individuals, prepares all students for adult life in an inclusive society, opportunities to master activities by practicing and teaching others. A child with learning disability can learn to read by another child who has probably probably physical challenge. A child with physical disability is on a wheelchair but has no other issue with academics can definitely help a child with LD, or vice versa in different areas, right? So this child with LD who has a problem with reading can take this other boy around or help him in any other need. So they become great pals. Great learning outcomes, greater resources for everyone and all students' needs for betterment. So finally, at the end of it, what are the takeaways from today's session? The key takeaways are: inclusion is embracing the fact that everyone has value to add. I just now gave an example of a blind child, of a hearing impaired child, or a LD child, or a physically challenged child. If we look at each of these children as to what is their strength, and if we can convert that strength into making it the strength of the institution, then I think there is more positivity and adding value in the society at large. It is building a community that is accessible to everyone. It is adapting to the method of instruction to meet the needs of all students. And inclusion is finding students' strength and planning for their success than focusing all the time on what the child cannot do. Last, most important, and something that we all must carry this one takeaway. Inclusion is not about infrastructure, it's not about the resources, it's not about the facilities. It's more about an attitude, a belief, and a mindset. If we are ready to make changes here, then we all will be happy to be a part of an inclusive school. So happy inclusion to all of you, and I'm all set for any questions if you have.
Thank you so much. It was a very insightful session, ma'am. I'm sure now our participants would be very aware of what an inclusive school is and how important it is to have an attitudinal change that does the magic, where we include all children in an equal and a conducive environment. Yes. Before we move on to the question and answer session, dear attendees, I would like to inform you about the upcoming events. On the 21st of October, we have workshop 3 that will be talking about how can we set up the student support services department in an inclusive school. It would be conducted by Ms. Shivani Vadwa and Ms. Mitha Tripathi at 4 p.m. India time, 5:30 p.m. Indonesia time, and 6:30 p.m. Singapore and Philippines time. On the 28th of October, we have workshop 4 that is going to talk about gaining parental acceptance and support, that is going to be taken by Dr. Mary Grace Gomez. The link of these events will be posted in the chat box. Do book your slots and hope to see you all at the events. Do share the care and forward the links to whom you feel can benefit from these programs. I would also like to take you through how we have given a new look to our events. So if you have to be a part of Ability events, the first step is you could click login and register for the event to sign up and register for the workshop. Then what you would need to do is there are going to be a lot of options that come there. You'll be having the event details, you have questions, resources, and related events. In the questions tab, you can type out your questions for the expert speaker, and also there'll already be some questions by other participants. And if you feel that is a relevant question to your thinking, you could give it a upvote, and questions with most upvotes will be prioritized. Along with it, we're also sharing with you the resources. Resources for this workshop will be posted in the chat box now. Yes, the inclusion checklist is also being given where you could see how inclusive your school is. So for each event, you can click on the resources tab to find the relevant resources that the team Ability has created and also the expert is sharing with you. Do like and follow if you find the resources to be helpful to you. To know more about the other events, you can click the Related Events tab where you will know the events that you will be wanting to attend in the near future. And if you also want to know what have been your events that you have been registered for and have attended in the past, you can go to your events tab and have a look at all the workshops that you have been a part of. I'm also delighted to inform to you the new initiative by Ability. If you have created resource for special needs, you can become a resource creator on our platform. You can share it with over 40,000 educators and parents. If you are interested to be a part of being a resource creator, the link for the form is being posted in the chat box and you could fill it. It's a 3-step process where you could create a profile. You have to upload the resources that you feel can benefit the special needs community, and then you would be receiving feedbacks and ratings from the community, and also you could build followers to your profile. Hoping to see you all be a part of this resource creation. Now, without any delay, we would now move on to the question and answer round. Are you ready, Bala ma'am, to take the first question from our participants?
Sure.
Ma'am, there are a few participants who were saying that when we have spoken about the different boards like CBSE, in spite of concessions, sometimes children are not able to cope. What could be the way forward for them? Like, in spite of putting off all the efforts, even the concessions are not being supportive of. What is the way ahead for them?
Yeah. So in India, as we know, there are majorly three boards: CBSE, ICSE, and the state board. And of course, we have the IB and IGCSE also practiced in India. But many people do not know about this one more amazing board, and that is open schooling, NIOS. And this board is actually open to even citizens of other countries. And this board has some amazing facilities. One is they can choose the subjects. They can choose, they need to do only one language, any one language out of the many languages in option. Then they have many subjects like 20. If I talk about class 10, 28 subjects are offered, out of which the child needs to do only 4, whatever he or she is capable of. And there is added to this, they have other facilities for children with special needs. These exams are conducted twice a year. Okay. That means if their child is registered now, he can appear in class in April, May, or later on in October, November. Also, they have a facility called on-demand exam. So if they appear in October, November, and after 2 months, a child is ready for another exam, you can register for an on-demand exam and appear for one more exam. So the child does not have the load of appearing for 5 to 6 subjects at one go. It can be distributed over the year, which is very easy for children with such kind of needs. And the other advantage is, one is selection time frame. That is, once you register for the exam, you can complete your boards by 9 attempts or in 5 years. Your registration is valid for 5 years. All the registration process the child or the parent can do online without the support of anybody by going to this website. So it's again very cheap, very well designed. And there are AI centers across the country who give you that support, or AI centers in every city in India where they have these offices from where you get all these support. So if the child is unable to do something with CBSE or with all those provisions, you can always choose to take up another board for board exams for that matter.
Thank you so much, ma'am. There's a question from a participant in continuation to this, that is there any age group for enrollment into such provisions?
Yeah. So the beauty again here is, if you are appearing for class 10, the minimum age limit is 14 and there is no pre-qualification required. There is no pre-qualification. There is no requirement that you have gone to a school or you have studied in class 8 here or 9 here, nothing. Your biological age should, the certification for biological age needs to be 14, and your identity as a citizen of this country. That's all the requirement. That is, there is no entrance, there is nothing. The child can be directly registered for the open school exam. It's an amazing board, and unfortunately in India itself, not large population knows about it. So I always request the schools, wherever I conduct my workshops, whichever principals I talk to, that they must have a section for NIOS, that suppose a child cannot follow that particular board, the child should be able to opt for open schooling. And this board is valid across the world. Certificates from this board. So all the 300, 400 children who studied in my school, all of them have passed through open schooling. None of them went through the CBSE. And all of them are doing extremely well in life across the world, whether it is in US, UK, because the certificate is valid everywhere. And it is also from children for class 1 also. That means age 6 onwards, the books are available. The curriculum is freely available in the website of the board.
Thank you for sharing this insight with our participants, ma'am. And now there's another question that when we were talking about inclusive schools, so there are times that these children could be bullied. And bullying is happening in schools. When you see a child of special needs being bullied by his or her classmates, how can we help these kinds of scenarios, or how can we prevent this kind of scenarios to happen?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think it's not it's not the children who are disabled who are bullied. I think anybody is bullied. The boy bullies the girl bullies the boy. Bullying is quite common. Now, I've been talking about one aspect right from the beginning of the session till now, and that is attitudinal change, awareness, trainings, and workshops. If this is consistently done in the school, parents, teachers, school stakeholders all are prepared to address this issue, I think the bullying issue will not exist. It's because presently we have inclusion, but within inclusion we have segregation. And that attitude is not only in children, it is there in the teachers, it's there in many other staff, that idea of segregation. If that is merged into inclusion, and that that needs a lot of time. Only parents who have children with disability can understand what they go through, but parents who do not have these challenges, it takes time for them to understand. And that is why, when you, in fact, I request to the schools that when you give admission, especially if you are an inclusive school, when you give admission to a parent without disability, it should be there in the policy that we have children like this, we will be encouraging them. Are you okay to come and participate with these children? Are you okay that your child will be interacting with this child, and you as a parent will also be? So if you are announcing it in open, allowing the parent to take a choice, this problem can be addressed. Because then like that's what I did. I would always tell the parent, look, I have this in my school. Only if you are okay, then you take admission. Otherwise, I am fine, because this is my school's policy. So when the parent is told this, they'll ask a couple of questions to you based on that. And when they get answers to those questions and they experience what's happening in the classroom, I have seen many parents change their approach completely and actually start feeling grateful for making them understand this issue. So it is an initiation from the administrator, from the teacher. It's, as I said, it's a holistic program. Otherwise, things cannot be changed just by one incident.
Such an important point, what to like, ma'am. When parents are made to live through what a school is having and making them aware in the beginning that this is what your child would be experiencing with other children also helps and plays a very, very important role. Now we have another question from a participant, ma'am, from Jonah Quitting, who wants to ask that do schools which implement entrance examinations, do they defy the inclusive education? What is your take on it?
If they are an inclusive school, then they will have provision for such children. But if they are not an inclusive school, they will stick to that model. So as a parent, I feel you have to choose where you want your child to be, because that's a school stake. Though the new education policy now emphasizes that you have to become an inclusive school. Like one of the school I called up the other day, just to, in fact, I called up many schools to find out what is their stake on this. So one school said, we have all the provisions, we have all the facilities, we are open to it, but we don't have a single child coming to our school. So when I asked them why, you have spent money in redesigning your infrastructure, or probably you designed your infra, because now the CBSE has made it very clear. In fact, the new schools that their school have to be disabled friendly. But they said, no, we don't have. I have no idea. I said, but why you don't have? Because there are so many parents looking out for admissions who do not want to send their children to special education schools and would love to have your children here. So he says, no, we have it in our policy, we have it here everywhere, but we do not have. And I know why they do not have, is because they are not making it loud and clear in every function, in every program, in every meeting within the school environment, that please, as addressing the parents, that we are open to taking such children. If you have somebody in your community, society, anywhere, you're welcome to bring them in. If this approach can be adopted by the school, Why won't, if I have a neighbor whose child needs admission, who's struggling, will I not advise that my child's school will definitely take your child also and do it? So it's, again, I'm coming back to that. It's not about investing on infrastructure and making policies. It's many steps ahead of going to the society and telling, look, we are open to this. Can we welcome you and have you in our school?
Very beautifully expressed, ma'am. It's all in the attitude and how it's not only about infrastructure, but it's way beyond that. Yes. And now we have a few questions on those lines, ma'am. When we talk about the school setup and everything, a few participants, including Rosal, wanted to know that when a regular classroom comprises of children who are diverse, along with general students, how many special needs students can be included in a classroom
I
for the
think
teacher to be
yeah,
able to
I think
manage
the norm
effectively?
says 2 or 3.
Okay. So there are
Again,
two.
depending on the severity of the disability.
Thank you, ma'am. So again, as we move ahead, parents play a very, very important role, as you have also mentioned about it. So as a special educator, Preeti wanted to know that even when they try to explain about the condition of the child, parents as well as the school are not cooperative. How can special educators play a key role in helping such children?
Um, can you repeat the question,
Yeah,
please?
Preeti is a special educator, ma'am. She's speaking from the point of view of a special educator. When she deals with a lot of children, there are times she struggles to convince the parents to opt for an inclusive school or go for NIOS. And the other hand, she also struggles to convince the school authorities and the parents simultaneously. So she has a struggle with parents who are not agreeing to the condition of the child, as well as on the other hand, the school management not accepting these children. So how can she maintain a balance and help such children?
Yeah, I first of all congratulate you, Preeti, that you're making this step. Second is, what you have got into is not easy. Let me tell you, it's very challenging. It is a continuous effort. It is consistent belief in yourself that children can be helped. So you will always get negations from everywhere till there is a strong law that you will not get affiliation. The schools will not be affiliated if you do not have X number of children with different needs admitted in your school. Something like that. Some kind of law like that. So I always look at it as, what do you do as an individual? You don't give up. That's the first thing. Why you don't give up? Because you chose to become a special educator. You could have become a fashion designer and chosen to do that. But because I chose to become a special educator and move into this field, my first suggestion to you is, don't give up. You must consistently go with different approaches to your school management and give them various situations, what's happening probably in other good schools, the practices of other good schools, or how the child can be benefited by doing this more frequently to your management also and to your school also. I don't expect the parent to understand anything very easily. I've been with them for last 15 to 20 years and I can see parents don't understand very easily, and I'm okay about it. But can I give up on that? No, because I chose to have an inclusive school. So my job is to continuously guide them, encourage them, support them, give them ideas why we think this is important. Because if you are doing something good, you don't need to fear anybody. You need to be bold enough and confident enough to continue doing it. If it doesn't happen now, and I'm sure with time to come, things will change. But don't give up, because there are very few special educators in our country who can make a change. Call yourself one of them and do it. And take the support of general educators. As I said, special educators and general educators are not working together. If they work together, a lot of problems can be addressed, because when you go as a team, the management definitely looks at it differently.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm sure she's got a very insightful answer as to how she could balance it. Now we have a question from Mr. David, who wants to know what is the impact of inclusive education on children without disability? When we speak a lot about inclusive education, does that have any impact on children without disability?
Positive. It has only and only and only positive impact. That's what I have seen. I remember many parents coming for admission to our school and saying, if my child studies here, will he or she start imitating like that child? This is a very common question I received. So I used to ask them, okay, from which school are you coming? So they would say XYZ. I said, how many years did you study there? He said, no, my child studied amongst the brighter ones. So my question is, this is children with learning disability. Okay. So my question to them would be, did your child has studied there for 6 to 7 years. So did your child imitate like them? If yes, then things would have been different. He says, no, they didn't imitate like them. Then why should we think that these kids will imitate like them? That this child will imitate like them? Why do we have this blockade thinking when we look at a child with partial mental retardation or some other challenge, that whatever that child does, my child will also do? There is an age of imitation, and that is, I think, till age 5, 6, when every child imitates anybody, father, mother, grandmother. That age is called age of imitation. But does the child imitate throughout their life? No. So if you're bringing in a child of 13-year-old who's struggling in a mainstream school and want to shift to an inclusive school where there is more acceptance and sees other children also there, will this child be more comfortable in adapting to that environment, or will the child be imitating and become weaker? So that's where the parent understands that, yes, the logic is very correct. When it didn't happen here, why would it happen here? In fact, this child develops empathy for somebody else who's not able to understand the way this child understands. So his self-esteem goes higher because he becomes more valuable in helping another child who is less capable of doing something. So personality wise, this child grows emotionally, EQ, SQ, and IQ, everything. The child feels more confident.
Such a thought-provoking answer, ma'am. Really, it was going to help us all reflect back to what are the things when we think about these topics. And now we have a question by Jyoti Kumari and Isther and the other participants who want to know that now, in the current times where everything has shifted online, how can these children with special needs be included and supported well virtually?
That definitely is a challenge. So I believe in educating the parents. That's what my platform is doing for children with learning disability. I have a platform where I have made lots of resources for parents, because children cannot sit online. They do not know how to read online. They have challenges, we all know. So if you educate parents and parents are ready to learn, they can help the child till things become so-called normal and going back to schools. Meanwhile, if the parent get educated, I have seen many parents now who do not want to send the children to school because now they have learned the trick to deal with their own child in a much better way. And one of the parents wrote to me the other day saying, ma'am, my bonding with my child has improved so much because from the resources that you provide, the support you provide from the platform, we started understanding that, yeah, I mean, it's not that you need to be a teacher to help a child like this. Even I can do it because I made it so simple. Even I can help my child very easily and develop that connect with the child. So parents' roles shifts, and I know it's not easy because parents are working, or parents are not educated, or parents have too many other responsibilities. But as of now, either parents, or I've also conveyed this in many places, college students who are not going to college because of the online thing, why don't they shift to this, learn about this, and go one-to-one and help such children in homes, get some extra income, have a skill, because this adds to their own resume, isn't it? So I have an NGO. So in my NGO, I get lot of college students coming in to get a certificate from an NGO for having done some voluntary work, especially when they want to go abroad. So I always ask them, your purpose to do voluntary work is only for that certificate to go abroad. But what if you think voluntary work should be a part of your curriculum and should be natural for all the colleges, irrespective of whether you're doing an MBA or you're doing whatever. I mean, so many fields. What if the colleges make it mandatory to have voluntary works and some hours of your work with children with special needs? There are three major positive things that can happen. One, these children will get support by these individuals going and learning about them. Two, these young adults who think that mobile and whatever, blah, 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 they're so busy with that. Their mind will shift to knowing about people with disadvantages. They'll value their own self, they'll value them. And when they grow up in college and in profession, I think they would change as a personality. So I have had many such students coming and doing in my NGO 1 month, 1.5 months of internship. So many of them would say we would do technical work because they would come from technical background. I said, there's no technical work in my school. You have to spend X hours with children. Even if you don't want to teach, just be hanging around with the child. Just be around that child, helping him, take him somewhere, sitting and talking to him, playing some games, talking. Even talking makes a lot of difference. If that kind of program can be done, there is a shift in your EQ, IQ connect. And we will have, you can, I mean, this suggestion you can give to your colleges if children can volunteer to learn something about different disabilities and go and do voluntary work and help parents who are suffering a lot till online support, till we are stuck on the online support. The name of my NGO is Prayas Charitable Foundation. We work for children with learning disabilities, and presently we work for children from slum, school dropouts. I have been working for children with school dropouts for the last 20 years. I love them. I love school dropouts because they are so amazing. They are so capable. The reason for dropout is just marks, but there's so much beyond them. How do you contact me? Ability can help you for that. If I'm allowed to share, then yeah, Shivani.
They can write to us at support@ability.com. We'll help them. You can write to us at support@ability.com and we'll help them through it. As you were saying, ma'am, experiential learning definitely gives a lot of insights to an individual. Same way, if children could be helped, or adults, the young adults could be helped into gaining an experiential learning into children with special needs, the EQ, SQ quotient would definitely go up for these children. Now we have another question by Jessica Fernandez-Co, who wanted to know that when we talk about inclusive education and we are to include diverse children, while taking admission, is there any assessment tool that can be used before accepting them in the inclusive settings of education?
So I think the assessment tools would be different for different disabilities. It cannot be standardized, right? If there's a child for autism, it will be different. If there's a child for LD or for mild mental retardation, it will be different. So I think that whole department is taken care of by the counselors and special educators of the respective schools. So definitely there is an assessment tool. Otherwise, how do you diagnose? And the other way is the schools ask for a report from the clinical psychologist whom the school might be connected to, or even otherwise. With that report, they take the education of the child further, education or whatever special needs support the child requires.
Thank you, ma'am. And now, as we were talking about the school, what is your take on what should be the teacher-student ratio in an inclusive school setup?
Ideally, the UNESCO says 1:12. May be possible in many countries, not in India. And I know it. So I don't go by imaginary numbers. But what I go by is pushing my ability as an individual. So for example, if I learn to teach one-to-one, if I push my skills further, I'll be able to teach 1:2, 1:3, 1:4. So I'm somebody who used to teach 1:20 also, matlab 20 with different challenges, right? So it's all comes with experience. You start knowing that how do you keep children with different needs productively occupied by planning your lessons well in advance. So the ratio is not about keeping children just engaged. Special education rooms are not supposed to be like giving children some toys or some resources and they are busy for 45 minutes. Busy doing what? They are such innocent souls, and I think least injustice should be done to them. Whereas children with with normal IQ or without disability can question you and say, "Ma'am, my worksheet is over now. What do I do? I'm sitting idle." But these kids are so innocent; they have no idea whether they are actually learning or not. So the whole preparation is required from the general educator or a special educator. How you can productively keep each of these children very productively occupied and having that is why IEPs are made. So if your IEPs are designed well, that what are you expected to do in the next 45 minutes, and these 45 minutes are broken down into say 15 minutes of activity and non-activity time, I think there will be results shown in every session. So when I come back to the ratio, as I said, UNESCO says 12:1, but I say push your efficiency and increase it and help children.
Rightly said, ma'am. Effective planning goes a long way when we have to help children with special needs or any children for that matter. So now we have another question, ma'am, by Dr. Danilo, who wants to ask that how can we convince parents to go for the buddy system per se? There are sometimes parents reluctant when we have been spoken about the importance of buddy system and how important or how major role a buddy can play in the life of a child with special needs. How can we convince parents for that kind of a system?
Parents of this children with disability or parents of children
Yes,
without
parents of a
disability?
child with disability.
So why can't we talk about all this at the time of admission? See, admission is a time when the parent actually makes the choice of why the parent wants the child in the school. So if we have all these regulations in our policy and convey it to the parent that we are going to do this, and these are the advantages of this. Why do we have a system? It's like we have sports day. Why do you have a sports day? There is a mission behind sports day. There is a purpose behind annual day. There is a purpose behind farewell parties. There is why picnics are organized, why exhibitions are conducted. These things have become normal to everybody, right? So they know sports days for this. But if you're introducing a concept, a buddy system, or any such concept where children go and stay overnight in somebody's house, night stay. So if all that comes in your school policies and it's explained by the front desk counselor that all this is going to happen with your child, children with disability and without disability, I think things will be very easily accepted. Number two, it needs to be repeated and revised in every PTM that these things are in the pipeline. We are planning this. These are the challenges we will be facing, and we are looking out for your support to make it happen. So I very strongly believe that people understand if we plan it and tell in advance. None of us knew about the mask in January 2020. Happy New Year masks were eye masks. We never knew about this mask. Situation taught us. We adapted it. We practiced it. And now if you look at somebody not wearing a mask, you give a different look. It's all about change here.
Very true, ma'am. It's all about change and how we look at the situations. So now we'll take the last question of the day from the participants, ma'am, where one of them wants to know, she's J. Seema Sharma, is there any provision to raise a complaint if a school is not cooperating to help children with special needs? If you could throw light on that.
Yes, CBA, all the boards have it. Kindly go and, kindly, study the board. I can't remember any article or anything now, but I know there is, and parents have taken the schools and the government also to court. If I can tell you, the dyslexia associations happened in India is because of the parents. Parents are so powerful. parents need to just understand that there are facilities available to them, and parents can take government to court. And that is how Maharashtra Dyslexia Association was formed, Karnataka Dyslexia Association was formed, and even now many states do not have the dyslexia associations, because the school, the teacher or professionals cannot do anything. Like, a lot of parents used to come to me and say, ma'am, why don't you fight for us? We are not allowed to fight for it, because I'm a professional helping a child. So it's always looked at from a different angle when I do it. But when a parent does it for the child, they get all the support. So there are ways where you can go against the norms of the school.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing this insight and giving them examples of how it is possible. Now, yes, I would also like to remind the participants before we end the session, and I would like to thank Bala ma'am for patiently answering all your queries in depth with examples and through her experiences. Thank you so much for a wonderful session, ma'am. And now I would also like to remind you all that the upcoming workshops are on the 21st and the 28th October. Stay tuned. The links are being posted in the chat box. You can register for them. We have how we will be setting up a student support services department in an inclusive school, and how can we gain parental acceptance and support by Dr. Mary Grace Gomez. So share the care, and we will see you all in the next workshop. Until then, there's a big bye from Team Ability.
Thank you so much, Shivani. Thank you so much, Team Ability. I hope I could do justice to the topic. And if I have made any mistakes in conveying any concept and beliefs of mine, I apologize to all of you, because I've shared what I've experienced and what I wish the country and the world to have. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity. If any one of you wish to connect with me, I think Shivani will be able to help you to do that. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you all, dear attendees. Have a restful evening ahead.
Happy Navratri.